Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Art of Letters weekend events. And today we're very glad to have Sabine sharing with us how to make folded cards with offhand flourishing. So take it away, Sabine.
Hello, I will share my screen with all of you. There we go. This is one of the pieces I made for the exhibition. If you remember, it is a book with pages that open once you open them because they are folded. And what we will do today is something very similar. We will make little cards that will open when we unfold them. I did not put anything in here just to show you the options, and the possibilities for these pieces are really endless. You can put in gift vouchers, you can put in gift cards, you can take drawings from your children or grandchildren and make greeting cards. If you have a child in your life that is in the pirate phase, I know my niece was big into this, make a little treasure map, something like that. It looks exciting. And that's why I wanted to show you this dummy, because there are so many options. What you will need to work along, if you want to work along, is paper. It should be thick enough to hold your ink if you want to put ink on it, but it also should be thin enough to be folded neatly. So I like to use paper. This is a paper, actually I'll show you how to do the fold with this paper. It is 120 gram, but it is made of hemp, so it's very sturdy. It behaves a bit different. I will do my demonstration on just a normal sheet of paper. This has only 90 grams, but it will work because we will glue everything in our cardstock at the end. So you don't need to really work with thick paper. What would be important is that your cardstock is square. I have different sizes here. And the size of your paper really is determined by the size of your cardstock. We want to have a maximum of twice the amount of this length here. So this card is 10 by 10 centimeter. So the paper we would be working on would have a maximum of 20 by 20 centimeter. This card here is also 10 by 10, but the paper I glued in was only 17 by 17 because I like to have these little borders. But that really is up to you, whatever you like to work with. For time purposes, I will work on a card that is a bit smaller. It's 7.5 by 7.5 centimeters. And my paper is 13 by 13 centimeters. Just to give you a hint, but really you can do any size with these. That's the beauty of it. You can just look around in your house, whatever you have, and you can take it and make it work for yourself. You don't have to run into a shop and buy specific cardstock. This card, for example, was rectangular, and I just cut it to square, just to make it work for this little project here. Okay, so I will work on this paper a bit later, but to show you the folding, I thought it would be a bit easier to work on bigger paper. That's what we will be doing now. We will need a bone folder for the folding. I have one that is a bit twisted in itself. I like this one. You can use straight ones, whatever you have at home. If you don't have a bone folder, you can use a ruler, or you can just use your fingernails. They work just as fine. Don't worry. A bit later, if you want to do what I do, which is a decorated, very bold frame, we will use a compass. You might want to use a pencil. We will need a ruler, really short. We will just need to make one little mark, so don't worry. We don't want to use rulers. We will need ink. I have a very dark self-made walnut ink here. And we will need a pointed pen. I have a straight one. I find it easier to do offhand flourishing with a straight nib, but really it's up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable using, use it. And if you don't want to do calligraphy, you can do anything. You can draw something inside. You can do brush lettering. Whatever makes you happy, you can do it, no problem. Okay, so to start with the folding technique, we will take our rectangular paper in front of us and we will fold it. Just half of it. Okay, I want to make sure that the corners are really like parallel to each other before I commit to it, because there's no way back from here. And I will always enforce my foldings with the bound folder. That makes it so much easier afterwards. Now we will fold it open again, turn it 90 degrees and fold it again. Nothing new here. It's very easy. There we go. Oh, and just to make something very clear, this was our first fold. And I will just mark it now because I want to show you something a bit later. So I will just put a 1 here. That was our first fold, this one. Okay. Again, we open the paper, we folded it once, we folded it twice. Now we are turning it again 90 degrees and we're folding the diagonals. And if I can do that, you can do that, because I am really not good at folding. Well, I tried a lot of folding techniques, but I'm challenged. Okay, so we open it again, and maybe you guessed it, we will do the last fold. So again, turning 90 degrees and folding it corner to corner and enforcing these. Okay, when you open your paper, you see that you made basically 4 folds here and 4 folds diagonally. Okay, now we will turn the paper and we will do a little trick. You see, I am just for demonstrating purposes, I will go over these 4 folds. And what you can do now is this. I see Dorothy is working along, which is very encouraging. And I can do it. Oh yeah, you did it. Perfect. Again, we will take our bound folder and we will enforce these lines. And now we're close to the end. We will turn it because it's easier to work this way. And we will fold these little corners to the center line, all 4. So we're doing this. Again, always use your bound folder because it makes your life so much easier in a moment. I'm turning the work and I'm doing just the same. It's very repetitive. So basically we're doing everything. Dorothy, you were quicker than me. I'm very impressed. Okay, here we are. And now we will open this way, and we will push these little folds inside. Again, we're turning it. Here you have your folded edge. Unfold it, push it inside, and fold it. And I like to do that with all 4 edges at once, and then go over all of them with my bound folder when I'm done, because I'm a bit lazy. Here we are. And if you're unfolding this thing now, you have your little map fold, because that is what it's called. It's called a Turkish map fold. And if you're ever curious about how to do it rectangularly, it is possible. The technique is a bit different, the folding technique. But if you really want to fold a rectangular piece of paper, just Google it. There are a ton of tutorials online. Okay, so we have what we will glue into our cardstock, because the next thing from here is to take your cardstock, open it, and just glue your paper in, and you're good to go. What is important about gluing is, you will see we have 4, well, what is it? it's a kite. On these 4 points, I want to apply the glue. I do not want to apply the glue here because I want this to be able to unfold without problems. Okay, so you don't have to be generous with the glue. There is space. We really only need these 4 dots. Okay, one last thing I want to show you, because this will become important later when we have a decorated piece of paper that we want to fold, because we want to make sure that it is unfolding the right way around, right? If you did a piece of calligraphy and you want to unfold it, you don't want the text to be turned 90 degrees or anything. And this is where our little marked number 1 comes into play. And you see that it is on the back side. So when you have a piece of paper with something written on it, you do not want to fold it. Let's say we have, I don't know, Dorothy. Okay, we want this to be in the middle of the paper in the end. And we start folding. We want to turn the paper upside down and then start folding. Okay, so whatever you have written on your paper, you want to be inside. And you want to make sure that this cross is running through it. It should not be on the diagonal lines. Okay? Because I'm not sure I will be able to fold my decorated piece in the end because it has to dry for a bit. And I don't want to ruin everything by being very impatient. And maybe that's what I'm known for. Who knows? Okay. I think this fold was easy enough. At least I could do it. So it's very, very easy. Let's start with our decorated border. I'm a bit nervous on working on camera, so if my hands are shaky, I apologize. That might happen. Okay, what we need is a piece of paper in the right measurements. We need our ruler, just for a moment. We need a pencil, and we need our compass. Okay, what we want to do is to mark the middle of the piece. That is by making sure the ruler touches both edges, and I'm just making a very light mark in the middle of the piece. I'm turning it, doing just the same. Here we go. And where they meet is the center of my piece. Very easy. We don't have to measure anything. We can use good old geometry. And we, of course, I forgot to say it, but I think it's self-explanatory. You want to make sure to put whatever you want to put on your paper before you fold it, because after folding it, it will be very hard to write on it, no matter what you want to do. So we want to do it first, and we want to fold afterwards. Okay, we will take our compass. And we want to make 2 circles. I'm just eyeballing it. There's no rhyme or reason behind this. Whatever looks good for you. We want to have enough space within these 2 circles to put in offhand flourishes. So you want it to be rather thick, but really it's up to you. Okay, I am erasing this. And now you see, because I'm using really thin paper, that I have a little hole in my piece. Once you put some writing in the middle, usually I would do this first, but because it needs to dry, I will skip this step now. It's not visible anymore, but what I like to do is just turn my paper real quick, take my bone folder, and go over this little edge. I'm basically closing it from behind, and it becomes less visible on the front. This is really thin paper, but it shows less for me than it does on camera. I'm just checking, and it's still very visible for you. It's better for me. But once you're putting in your word, you can really not see it anymore. Okay, what I like to do for these is usually I work much bigger, like for my fellow American friends, like 10 by 10 inches. So really big, put a quote in the middle and put a really bold frame around it. You can see it on my Instagram. I'm doing it a lot because it's so much fun. These frames are not planned. There's only one thing I will put in now with my pencil, and that is because I tend to screw them up majorly if I try to do it without planning, and because I want to make sure they are placed more or less evenly around this this border. If you can do cartouches without any problem, or little hooks as I call them, you can skip this step. Don't worry, I will do it. And you will see me bent down quite a bit now because I have terrible posture when doing calligraphy. I'm working around a not so abled body, so we all have to work with what we have. But don't be me, just have a good posture. And I'm taking off my glasses because my eyes are doing crazy things. Okay, I will, through all this piece, work generally with the rule of uneven numbers. That is a design rule that's out there in the world. To our human eyes, it is more pleasing if the numbers of anything we see are uneven. So instead of putting in 4 cartouches that are distributed very evenly, it will look nicer to our eyes if we put 3 or 5 in. This is a small frame, so I'm going with 3. If you like to do 4, just do 4. I mean, it's just a rule. We can break any rule as long as it's not illegal. And there is no design police. So you can really do whatever you want. I will do it this way. I like, for my cartouches, and the cartouche, I did one piece here because I was afraid to mess it up now. So we have something to come back to. What I like to do is, you see, it's these little hooks that are going this way. I will do them in a second. And I like them to come out of a line. So they are coming either out of a middle line or they're coming out of the outer line. Again, totally up to you. Whatever you do, I wouldn't necessarily mix them up because then the piece becomes a bit busy. But if you like busy, go for busy. Again, there's no right or wrong here. Okay, so we will do that, and I might be quiet for a moment. And what you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm basically following this line mid-air, and I'm landing on my paper in the moment when I really want to make the mark on the paper. But this way, my hand is already going in the right direction. And I will not necessarily follow them, exactly when I'm going in with my pointed nib. That's not a problem. Next one, maybe here. And you see I'm doing them both way around. One way going out, one way coming in. I don't mind. But whatever feels better to your hand, just do it. And I'm not necessarily a fan of the placement of these, and that's what I meant when I said screwing up. And this is why I'm doing this step with a pencil and an eraser. So I will really quickly do that. And I'm hoping this is a learning moment, you know? So let's do this. And if there is residual, if there are residual pencil marks here, don't worry. You can go in with an eraser at the end when everything is dry before you fold anything. That's the moment to do it. But I would wait at least half an hour to let everything dry, preferably an hour, because you don't want to know how many of these frames I screwed up last minute. Easy to do. Okay, and I want to have one last group. And you can see I'm making, again, groups of 3. We will go in these, but this is just for me to have a very rough idea of where to put anything. And this is as far as planning for me goes. That's where I stop. Okay, so I take everything away. Don't need anything now, except for my pointed nib. I have a little nib rest here and my ink. And I do have a funny little piece of paper where I'm always, after picking up ink, I'm making a little mark on here just to make sure that my ink flow is right. This is very handy. It's just a little piece of scrap paper, and you see I've used it for the last, I think, 3 months. Usually they last me a year, and then there's really no room for any more tick marks. So they're handy to have. Okay, I'm putting my ink here because I'm right-handed. It's always easier to have your ink at the side where you are writing. Okay, this is working. I am using a nib. This is a vintage nib, and I don't think it's available anymore, so I don't want to bother you. But anything that is like a Hans 22 would work well. We want a nib that is like very medium. We want a medium flex, and we want medium thick hairlines, because if your hairlines are too thin, it will be hard to see them in these pieces. Sometimes I do them with a Leonard principle. So of course you can do it, but it's easier to actually see the lines. And I think when we're doing cards or when we're doing anything that should be scanned and printed, we want the lines to be visible. I think we as calligraphers have the tendency to go for really thin hairlines because they're so beautiful, but they don't necessarily add to legibility for anybody who's not a calligrapher. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so I will start now. And I'm starting by inking one of these in. And there's really only one thing I make sure not to do, and that is crossing the lines that I drew with a compass. That is important because we do not enforce these lines. We're just filling the space in between them, and we want this frame to be really crisp and bold, and that's the way to do it. Okay. What I like to do here, just to bring them together, are a few tick marks. I will just pop it in. Nope. Is it sharp for you now? Not really, right? I'm helping my little document camera. Okay. So we have our first element in here. That was easy enough, right? You can do that. And what I like to do from here is to fill the blank spaces in between. So what I like to do, where I like to start, and again, you can do whatever pleases you, is bring in some lines here. And again, I'm always making sure I have something like an odd number, and I really like to repeat certain elements that makes the design in the end rather cohesive. And because these look a bit, well, bland, I will add some dot marks. Okay. So that's the starting point. Oopsie, there we are. Then I will look around. I'm usually looking at a good starting point. And for me, natural starting points are around my cartouches. It's either here or it's here. I like to start at these narrow spaces. And what I like to do is a little trick. I like to put a little half flower exactly in this spot. And for our eye, this line will be completed. So that is a little trick that I like to do to force our eyes to see this frame that will be erased in the end. All our pencil lines will be erased. And because we're here, why not add a little leaf? Here we are. I also like to bring in some line work in my flowers. You don't have to do that, whatever pleases you. Here we are. This is not, I just have to check it. Well, yeah, I'm doing it this way because I think it's sharper this way, right? If I'm zooming in, it's a bit fuzzy. Is it just for me, or is it better this way? Okay, so we will stay this way. Because I was thinking it was because I'm not wearing my glasses. So just go. And when I'm doing these cards, I think about the time of year I'm doing them in. When we're in autumn, I like to fill them with acorns, with little mushrooms, with very different shapes of leaves, whatever comes to your mind. Today, I will make one that is a bit more Christmas themed. So think of pine branches, holly leaves, little berries, and whatever really comes to my mind. I do have something that has proved to be very handy over the years. When I started learning offhand flourishing, I learned it from Suzanne Cunningham, from Heather Held, amongst others, but these were my main teachers in offhand flourishing. I started to create something that I call my offhand flourish library, which is a very grandiose name for just a little notebook. And wherever I am and whenever I see anything that I think, oh, I can do that very easily with just a few strokes with my pointed nib, and I like it, I'm putting it in this notebook. It is sorted, like I have a few pages for leaves, I have a few pages for flowers and whatnot. But this way, whenever I feel stuck or I'm unsure of what to do, I can just grab my notebook and check it. So if you're at all interested in offhand flourishing and you're a bit unsure of what to do or where to start, that is a good little helper. Okay. So, Christmas themed. We start with holly, right? Because what screams holly more? And maybe a few berries. That's good. Another twig of it. And over here, I'm getting close to my border, dangerously close. And I have a few options now. I could either do half a holly leaf and really enforce this curvature, or I can put in a pine sprig or whatnot. Whatever you do, always keep in mind that there is wet ink on your paper. Just saying. Because I have had so many times when I had to do surgery because I was smudging my ink. Okay, what I will do is a little pine leaf here. Okay, so we're filling it in. And this basically is what you do. You're going around the border, no matter how wide it is, no matter how big your piece is that you're working on, and you're filling every single spot in. So it's easy. I think it's a really easy way to work, and it's very impressive, and it's also very I find it relaxing because nothing is planned. You can just you know, you can just be creative, and you don't have to think about anything. One little tip I got from Heather Held, and I think is very valuable: if you want to add text, add it first, because your chances of screwing up the text are much higher than your chances of screwing up your often flourishings, because these are not planned. So whatever happens, if a form doesn't look perfectly right or correct to whatever extent, it really doesn't matter. People won't see it. But if you screw up the text, if you miss a letter, if you're completely off slant, they will probably notice. So start with that first. Okay, I'm talking too much. My ink is drying on my pen. There we are. What I also like to do in these, there's still a lot of white space, and I could leave it that way. Specifically when I'm working on dark paper, I like to go in with some colored pencils afterwards and filling these spaces. But when I'm working on white paper, or whenever I feel like it really, I can go in and I can always make more lines. And why not doing really bold and long tick marks? And now you know why your piece should really dry, because this will take at least 40 minutes to be completely dry. Here we go. Oh, another thing, you're seeing me doing it, turn your paper. I'm turning my paper all the time. Don't think, I've seen people who don't dare to turn their paper, or who like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm doing it correctly if I turn my paper. Turn your paper. Whatever you need to do your work comfortably is perfect. And it really prevents you from smudging in your ink. So turn your page. I hope you don't get dizzy if I do it. I know. Looking at a screen and watching somebody doing it, I would probably get motion sick. So I'm sorry if that is happening to you. Okay. A bit more pine. One tip for these pine leaves: you want to start with short strokes. You want them to go gradually bigger and then shorter again, or just bent over. This way you're bringing in a bit more movement than making every line straight and parallel, because nature isn't parallel, and we can use that for our advantage. So we have a wet spot here, and I think that would be perfect for a little flower. And I'm just talking out loud how I approach what I do, and how I'm basically talking to myself when I'm doing it. So again, nothing is planned, and you can really just play with it. Okay. I want to have, let's start here. Okay. And I can use this here to be half a holly that is going in my ornament. So always think of ways to combine your strokes, because it is helpful for the eye, again, to to accept all these lines that we're doing to be a cohesive frame. So that's the little trick here. And what I like to do is when I'm working between two of these bigger elements, I like to come from one side and then from the other. But you can also just go all the way over to this side. That really is just preference, but you can do it both ways around, and just making them meet in the middle brings in a bit more, well, oh, I'm missing the English word. I'm so sorry. A bit more interest. Let's say it that way. It's not the German word I had in mind, but we will live with that. And I'm really just thinking about, okay, what is missing? What can I add? And very often you will see that I am adding tick marks wherever I am. If in doubt, I'm always making a tick mark, rather a short one or a longer one, because they add so much interest and they're easy to make. And somehow, I don't know why, but for non-calligraphers, they tend to look impressive. I don't know why they are so easy. We all know how easy they are, but people really like things with these tick marks in them. So why not use it? Okay. Here we have a little triangular shape. So I'm thinking of something that can spruce out a bit. And these could be leaves, for example. Or we can make berries out of them. Whatever you want. And again, I am always going back to this rule of uneven numbers. Usually I'm doing 3 of anything. And I also try to repeat certain elements throughout a piece. It's just nice for a person that is watching to recognize something like, oh, I've seen that before. Where was it? You know, it's like these books for children. I don't know if you have them in the US or outside Germany. We have these books for children with a lot of little teeny tiny details in them, and you can play with a child for hours by just telling them, oh, search for, I don't know, the bread or the glass of milk, and they're occupied for hours. And this is a bit like that. We are adding elements and people like to recognize something. Okay. So now we are at another place that I called a natural place for a starting point, which is here, again, a narrow place. And I'm doing just the same that I did down here. I will add a flower, half a flower. This time I'm making it a bit different, making it larger. And I will put a little pattern in it, because sometimes the center of a flower has a pattern. And again, that helps the eye to recognize our border. And I will add petals that are slightly bigger. And you can totally interrupt your petals if there already is a line. There's no problem doing that. I am putting in some line work, whatever you like. And here we are. Okay. I like to pair my flowers with leaves. So we're doing that. And down here, I think we have place for another holly. Okay, and maybe a little berry. And we already filled 1/3 of this frame. So if you're not constantly talking like I do, you can be really quick. Okay, next. Again, I'm thinking about filling this space in here. This is a pencil line that will be erased, so I'm completely ignoring it right now. And I am just adding a few extra lines. And this time I will add little dots. I like to do them. They add a certain level of intricacy. and they're so easy to make. And you see again the rule of uneven numbers. It's 5 dots in every element. Very easy. And because I have so much space left, I will add something else and make my little tick marks. It's always easier to make the tick marks towards yourself. So again, turn your page. And you already see I smudged. I don't know how I managed it, but yeah, that's the first of many. If you are, if this is a piece you want to save at this point, take a bit of water and a very clean brush, dab it, and then take a bit of just cleaning paper and dab it, and it will lighten up. And if you do it 3 or 4 times, usually if the stain is really fresh, you can get rid of it. I won't bother now, but I want you. I knew this would happen, so we will live with it. Okay, what else? Here is really a lot of white space left that I don't necessarily like. So what I will do is I will insert a little holly. And hollies very often come with berries. Again, a number of 3. And I think this looks good. And we will go on. Now you know what happens. Next thought is, where can I start and what can I do? And now I want to introduce you to a little festive flower, which would be a poinsettia. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's very easy to do. You start with a few dots in the middle, because they have really interesting middle points. And then, because we're not working the full flower, we will add a little petal. And number 2 will be half a petal. Okay. Number 3, probably not the best position for it. But if we color the in with a red pencil in the end, people will recognize it. And that is what I meant with, your elements do not have to be perfect. They don't have to be recognizable at once, because this is a rather whimsical technique. And if somebody is not recognizing it and is asking you, what's that? You're like, don't you know this flower? You know? No problem. Okay. And I will add some pine. And now I will go parallel to this line to add the pine. So I do want to fill the space, but I do not want to be on the line and just do half a pine. So my second option, and I have to be very careful because I have a lot of wet ink over here. So my second option is to go parallel and do my little thingies. And here I'm making sure my lines are short enough to touch the line and not go over it. Again, you always want to touch the line. If you're unsure if you can do it, you could put some washi tape in the middle, you know, or just some tape that you can remove afterwards. That would give you a really sharp line. I don't use that because I like to slow down when I'm doing this process and to think about what I'm doing, and to focus on what I'm doing. And then usually I'm able to stop my hand. And if I'm not able to stop my hand, it's often flourishing. It's not planned. And nobody will ever be able to prove to you that you did a mistake, because it's your piece and it wasn't planned. So it has been the plan all the time, you know? don't worry about it too much. This really is a playful approach that I like to do when I'm a bit tired of very formal writing. This is like a little vacation with my pointed nib. Okay, so we had our pine leaf here, and I do want to make another one? I'm not sure yet. So what we will do is we want to come out of here with something. And I think I will opt for holly again because it's just fun. And I'm asking myself if it's better to bring it up here or just bring it down from here, just to bring it a bit interest. And I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm really talking too much and my ink is drying. Sorry. So here we go. Yep. And you see that I am rather quick when I'm doing these lines. And this way, they don't become perfect, but there's a certain movement in them that I would not get if I took all the time of the world to do them super neatly. And that makes it more lively in the end. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm asking myself how I can fill the spaces. And if you're just counting what I use, it's not many elements. I have the holly leaves, I have the little berries that come with the holly leaves or that are on a stem, but it's a berry no matter what. I have my normal leaves, I have my flowers, I have a poinsettia that doesn't look like a poinsettia, but we can live with it. And I have these pine leaves, and I have the little twig with however we want to call this element. It's just fun to have to make these little spirals. And it is a great way to actually loosen up your hand in the middle of something. So if you feel like you're tightening up, these are great. Sometimes when I have to write a long piece of copper plate, I do these on a piece of scrap paper beneath me when I'm tightening up too much. So they are fun. Okay. And because these already did land on a shared line, I just enforced this line. And now we really have to be careful because we have a lot of ink on 3 spots and they are not dried yet. And the new one for sure isn't. So we really have to be careful not to make our lives extra hard and to smudge a bit more. Again, a natural part to start something. Again, I'm going with the flower just because they're so easy. And you see these petal shapes are really lazy. They're not like super defined or anything. And when I have a spot like this, where there is quite a bit of white space left, but not really enough to add an element, I'm adding a little tick mark. Make it a bit bigger, that's it. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And again, using these leaves that I like to pair my flowers with to go over our outlines is such a smart way, because we have an element that comes with a natural curve, and we can pick up the curve from the frame just to go over it and to enhance it if you want so. And I just have to check my watch, because I know this always takes much longer than anticipated, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. Okay, in here we have some space, so why not add a holly? And you see how I work. You can go around it again and again and again. And what I like to do when everything is filled up and dry, I go over with an eraser. Usually I'm using a kneaded eraser for this, just because it's a bit nicer on the lines. But if you're not too rigid with your eraser, just use a normal one. If you don't have a kneadable one, that's not a problem. And afterwards, I'm checking if I can, first of all, add anything else, because once your pencil lines are removed, you will see where there are like problems for your eyes to accept this frame as one piece, because it consists of so many little pieces. And what I like to do then, when I see that that might be a problem for my eye, look at something like this. We have this element, but we have a bit of space until the next line comes. So what I like to do is I go over it and I add, you guessed it, tick marks. Again, an uneven number. So I did not just draw a line, but I filled this space, and it's much easier for our eyes to accept this frame as a frame once we did that. Okay, same here. I will add, without smudging, tick mark that starts on the line. And maybe some little dots beside it. I go over it a second time. And then once it's dry, I can decide what to do with it. I can either go in with a damp brush, if I used a water-soluble ink, and I can pull out a bit of color just to make it more interesting. Second option is I can take just ordinary colored pencils. I personally like to work with the Faber-Castell polychromos, but that is because I also do illustration work. So they are a bit more expensive, but you can really take whatever you have or what your children have. Again, you don't have to go out and buy something, and you can color in some elements. For example, color in the petals of the flowers. You can color in the leaves. Just a few splashes of color here and there make this really come to life. So it is a good option to use it. And then when everything is dry, you will turn your page this way and you will start folding as we did in the beginning, but everything has to be dry first. And that is why I showed you how to fold when we started. So I'm sure we had enough time to do that, and you know how to do it. And once it's folded, you can just glue it in a card and you have a beautiful, beautiful greeting card. You have a beautiful birthday card, you have Christmas cards, Chinese New Year cards, whatever you are celebrating personally. And these are done quickly. What you can also do is just do one, erase everything, scan it, and print it. You can print it 300 times if you need 300 cards. And you can print it on rather cheap paper, because we need thin paper in order to be able to fold it. So that's a win-win in my book. And then again, you just glue them in some cardstock. You can write something on the card, or you can just leave it plain on the outside. And when people are opening it, it's like boom on the inside. It's very impressive. It's very easy. And nobody will know that you had the time of your life actually doing them, because at least to me, this is really, really relaxing. And whatever you want to put in your cards, I hope it will look good, and I hope this is a technique that you will find useful. I thought it was a good idea to share this one, because I think this is something that both experienced calligraphers and newbies, or people who don't do calligraphy at all, can get some use out of. And that's why I wanted to do this little demo here. Okay, so when I think next one is Gabriela, when she's doing her presentation, I will finish mine. But for now, I think I'm pretty good on time. Yes. And thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sabine. Does anybody have questions for Sabine? Any questions? So what you were showing us just now, it goes to the inside. Is that right? The design is going to be on the inside. The offhand flourishing design. You would have folded it, and then when you open up the book, that's the design that you see.
Want it to be on the inside, so when you start folding it, it has to be on the outside.
Right. Okay.
That's why I put this little mark on our first fold.
Right. Understand.
Because when I started, you don't want to know how many pages I screwed up by folding them the wrong way. So I learned it the hard way. Yeah, I'm really challenged when it comes to understanding 3D and understanding where anything is in the room. So I like to help myself.
Yeah, and I really like the structure, how it folds, because it looks like it could be even a little pockets for things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
To keep things. Yes. So it's lovely.
And you can glue them together. You can make pieces out of them. You can make a lot out of them. So like 8 make a beautiful circle. If you do more than 8, you can fold them around themselves. It's a lot of fun. Okay. So yeah, definitely something to play with. Yeah, it looks like fun. Thank you so much for sharing. It's a great demo. Thank you. Thank you so much. So far, no questions. Everyone's saying good, beautiful, useful for the season, yes, etc. No questions. So I can stop the recording now. Yes.